afternoon, and welcome to Indie Business Radio for Monday, December 1st, 2008. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and you have arrived at the one place where we empower you to enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way. Today's show is sponsored by our media partner, Essential Wholesale. Since today is the 1st of December, Essential Wholesale is kicking off an Advent special today. There are different discounts on select cosmetics pieces that apply during different times of the day. And as you would expect, the biggest discounts are the ones that happen the earliest in the morning. So for those of you who are the early birds and you like to catch the worm, you want to head on over to essentialwholesale.com to grab up your cosmetic bases today. Again, the discounts are going to be they're going to be decreasing over the day, and you can get the biggest discounts right now. I'm so glad you're here on Indie Business Radio. Well, don't you just love a success story? You know, the kind where the underdog comes from behind and not only catches up to even the score, but knocks the ball out of the park? Well, I certainly love a story like that, and today we have got one for you right here on the show. Her name is Richelle Shaw, and Richelle is the owner of the only telecommunications company in the country that is owned by an African-American female. She is a mother, entrepreneur, and the president of Fresh Start Telephone in Las Vegas. Richelle Shaw bought her telephone company after working at a phone company for 7 years and then lost it all after September 11, 2001. She had to rebuild after a bankruptcy to redefine her market, develop a plan, and then by all means, she was not afraid to execute that plan. Richelle had nothing to lose, and she has really climbed back from, oh goodness, I guess a financial pit. I've read the book, so I think I can say, because I know where she was, because she talks about it in the book, and it's a great story. She's the author of How to Build a $1 Million Business in Las Vegas Without the Casinos, and we are welcoming her today to Indie Business Radio. Richelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wow. I always forget when I hear people say that. Okay, you know, when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize that that's what's happening until it's all kind of over. But an exciting journey it is.
That was you. If you guys have a question out there, you can email it to me at info@indiebusinessradio.com. Well, Richelle, let's get started with a little bit of personal information about your background. Now, there's so many questions to ask, I hardly know where to start. But let's begin with something that I found very poignant and touching in your book, and that was your description of how your parents greatly influenced you from a work ethic perspective. Tell us a little bit about how they influenced you as an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was totally blessed to have two dads. I have my birth father, and then also my mother remarried, and my stepfather. Both of them entrepreneurs. Both of them, you know, worked and constantly showed me how to build businesses. But really, the fun story is my mother, who was a waitress, who no matter what went to work every single day. We used to have the saying in my house that we couldn't tell her anything bad before she went to work, because she knew that she had to be on when she was there. She had to make money and collect her tips. So my mother was always, even at the Lady Luck Casino when we moved to Las Vegas, my mother, even there was nobody downtown. You know, who goes to downtown, right? Everybody's on the strip all the time, but people would come to see her over and over. And she really taught me about giving an experience every time, how to work hard, how, you know what, look, you can be anything you want to be, but it's really up to you. It's up to you, Richelle. And so I used to say, well, I don't want to do that. And, you know, then my father would say to me all the time, you know, well, misery is optional. I go, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, you know what that means. So if you want to be mad and you want to be miserable, please go somewhere else. You know, don't be around us. And so I learned that very, very early, that if I wanted to have an attitude, I could do that, but only for a limited amount of time.
You know, I love that what that points out is that as moms, and you're a mom, we're going to talk about that in a second, we teach our kids these things that they really don't understand when they're 3, 4, and 5, and 6 years old, but when they grow up and it really matters, it comes back to them.
Absolutely.
And that's saying that you probably you were like, what are they talking about? Misery, optional. You know, and there you were, I know, for years of your life as an entrepreneur and working for other companies as well before that. You had to call that to mind, didn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so fun that when both of my fathers read the book and my mother, they were like, oh, my gosh, my stepfather wrote me this wonderful letter that I tear up every time I think about it because it's so awesome. And I have it I blew it up and put it on the wall in my office so I see it every day. But, he says in there, I had no idea that I was so much of an impact in your life. And thank you for allowing me to be there because, sometimes when you have blended families, and now it's really, really common, but back then it really wasn't. It's just hard for the step-parent to really become accustomed and, integrated into the family. And so I just adore him, as well as I love my father, too, don't get me wrong, but they taught me so many wonderful things.
Well, it sounds like you just had all these inspirational people around you, and as you were going through all these things, and we're going to get into some level of detail about your work experiences both before and after you became an entrepreneur, but during the time when you were, struggling to build your empire, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the bankruptcy, you were a mother.
Yeah, well, actually,
mom of young children. Tell us about that. How old are your kids, and what was it like to try and find some level of balance with all that going on?
Well, what's so fantastic is that I do have a stepdaughter. My stepdaughter is 22 now, so she was there for the majority of everything. She was 5, 6, and 7, and then when she turned 18, we thought things were all done, and I was just going to move on. And I got a surprise in that I was on my way to the hospital for a hysterectomy, and the doctor said we can't do it because I was pregnant. So I know, God works in mysterious ways, and so now I have a 3-year-old who is really crazy, just absolutely nuts, and she is. I never got to really experience that, having a little one and integrating it into my business. But even now, since I've had her, I had to slow down a lot because I used to work 24 hours and then sleep 24 hours. And once I had the baby, that wasn't happening. If I get 24 hours worth of sleep in a week, that's like a blessing now. So now it's really about integrating the baby into my life, having everybody help. I bought a house for my mother around the corner from me, so God bless her soul. She's 67 with a 3-year-old constantly at her house. But even since my telephone business, I've also launched my Women of Color coaching. And so now I coach entrepreneurs. And so, believe it or not, trying to integrate both the telephone business and my coaching business, it does put a strain. But, how I work it is that anybody who wants to help me, I let them.
Well, I'm glad and that's like a magic word, help.
Yes.
I have two young children as well, and people say, balance, and how do you balance? And I use that word so loosely, but it's really all about asking for help when you need it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So let's take everybody back, because I know you've got quite a story here, and we don't have a whole lot of time to tell it, but I do have some highlights, some high points that I wanted to share and allow you an opportunity to really put some meat on the bones that are in the book, because you really just went through so much as a young person just entering the workforce, and you had several jobs, of course, before you took a job in the telecommunications company that you worked for. But I want you to share with our listeners the story of what happened to you at the Denver group as you were walking out the door.
Luther Fisher.
Share that story. I like that.
Oh, wow. Well, I love Luther Fisher, and he always had pearls of wisdom. And actually, I don't know if I really detailed the whole story in the book because, that was another life ago writing that book. But it was very interesting in that the reason why I actually quit was because I had gone to see my boyfriend, and they figured out that I came back late even though I said that the plane was delayed, and they called the airport and found out. So I was pretty much found out that I shouldn't have done this. But I loved the Denver group. It was a great job. It was like the best job you could ever have. The phone rang maybe 4 times an hour.
And you were a receptionist, right?
Right. And I got to just do my homework because at the time I was still at UCLA.
Right.
And when it was time for me to go, I went in and I said, thank you very much. And so Luther gave me my final check, and he didn't take any taxes out. And he said, you know what, because you're going to need this. And I said, oh, okay, well, thank you very much, as cocky as I always am. And he said, but let me just show you something really quick. And so in front of him, he had a glass of water. And there was a straw in the water. And he said, do you see this? And I said, yeah, well, what's the deal with that? And he goes, well, look what happens when I take the straw out. And so I saw it, and I go, duh, so you take the straw. And he goes, I want you to know that you are the straw.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so what does that mean? He goes, well, let me just break this down to you because obviously you don't get it. But you see what happens when you leave, that the water just forms right back around, and there's no hole anymore. So basically, without you here, nothing is going to change. Nothing. We're going to have another person who's going to come in, and everything's going to be just fine. So I wish you all the luck in the world, but hopefully that you learn that lesson, that in order for you to be an integral part of a company, that you need to give something back. You can't just take something all the time. So I was very embarrassed.
Well, how fascinating, though, that is really the story. Well, tell me what you think about that. Is that a relevant story for anyone who works with another company as an employee?
Well, absolutely. And as I went on to own my own and have 52 employees at one time, I would tell them that story all the time, as well as, let me tell you something, when I pay you, that's money that comes directly out of my pocket. And I have to make a conscious decision to pay you. Okay? Not that, you're not granted anything. It's not a right. It's not nothing. And I finally, after that, I had some really horrible jobs, by the way. And I kept thinking, wow, because I took from that company. I never really gave back what I should have. I wasn't the dedicated employee. I didn't come early. I didn't stay late. I didn't do anything extra. I did exactly what they told me to do. And I didn't take advantage of such incredible opportunities. This company, the Denver Group, did a leverage buyout of another mortgage company. Most of the employees got tons of shares and made a lot of money, and I missed out on all of that because I decided to be a jerk. And that's really what the bottom line was. I wasn't focused. I wasn't, I couldn't see any of that. So that even though I was a smart girl, even though I did go to work and I was constantly having aha moments while I was there, mm-hmm. I still didn't get it.
Right. And one of the lessons from your book is, for entrepreneurs, is hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
That's what you mean by that.
I used to just, if I liked you in the interview, I would hire you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out is that, this person wasn't the best person for me, and they weren't the best person for my company. We connected, but then all of a sudden they thought they were my friend, and they had a horrible work ethic, and there's a reason why they're not working right now, and you need to figure that out. So, my first person that I fired at CRC, which is, later, she came in and told me that maybe I should go and talk to the boss mm-hmm. before I went through with this. And I said, what? Are you kidding me? But, we kept people on for months and months after they showed us exactly who they were. Right. After they showed us, what kind of employee they were going to, we gave them chance after chance after chance. And I have a theory now that I really don't give people second chances because I feel like, if it's important to me, then it should be important to you. And if you can't make it that important and a priority, then maybe this isn't the right place for you. So now I don't have any problems with letting you go. Thank you.
You seem like the kind of person who would lay all the cards out on the table from the beginning anyway, so there wouldn't be any surprises.
Well, you'd be shocked that there always are surprises because they think that they're different and that their situation is different. And the bottom line is that an employee should bring you profit. That's the only reason why they should be there. If they're not bringing you profit and making your life easier, then why should I have them? And I tell you, now that I have my 3-year-old, it's very, very clear. Very clear.
Right. Not time anymore.
Yeah. It's like, no. I have enough with my own kid. I do not need to take care of you.
Well, we are off to a great start here with my guest, Richelle Shaw. She is the owner of Telecommunications Experts, Inc., and Fresh Start Telephone, which provides local phone service to residential customers in the Las Vegas area. We're going to come back and talk with Richelle more about her years in the telephone industry, and we're going to pick her brain about how all of this led up to her being able to actually pony up the cash to buy her own business. This is Indie Business Radio. I'm your host, Donna Maria. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. Our guest today is Richelle Shaw, the owner of Fresh Start Telephone, which provides local phone service to residential customers in Las Vegas. And we've been talking with Richelle about how she rose from being an employee to actually being able to buy her own business. So, Richelle, take us back to the point when you got a job at a telephone company. You ultimately ended up owning it. What a story that is. But tell us about, you got your first job at a phone company. It was just a job. What happened after that? You rose pretty quickly through the ranks.
I did, and it's really a kind of a fun story in that I was dating 3 men in 3 different states, and I had a really high phone bill. And so I met this guy who said, Richelle, you would be perfect to come and work this telephone company. I go, yeah, whatever. Most people think so, but trust me, I was sleeping on my mother's floor, and I really, really needed that job at that point. And I came in just as a sales rep. And I started to, it was the easiest thing I ever had to sell. Before I was selling advertising, and I had a hard time even getting out of the car. But this time, it was easy because I never had to ask for a check. I could just say, would you like to save money on your phone bill? And they would say, well, yeah, I'll try it out, no problem. So I learned how to really go in as a sales rep and solve people's problems, which is a great, lesson that business owners should always learn. It's not about selling them something. It's really about solving a problem that a customer, client, or patient should have. So when I was solving their problems, it was very easy. All of a sudden, I was promoted to director of sales, then director of operations, then vice president of operations, and then executive vice president. And my boss was a wonderful Southern gentleman who really just kind of took me under his wing. He saw that I was extremely raw, and needed some guidance because of this attitude that I had. But he also saw that I was just a real genuine person who was thirsty for knowledge. I just wanted to know how this worked. I always knew I wanted to own a company, but by all means, I was a history major, and we all know that they don't really teach you how to run a business, even in business school. I don't care what they say. They don't teach you how to run it. So he really kind of took me under his wing, gave me 2 essential things. Here, Richelle, I sign all checks that come through here, and I open all mail, so that anything that comes through, I know what's going on in the business. I said, okay. He said, and look, you can do whatever you want, just don't put me out of business. I said, well, that's kind of broad. He goes, no, but if you have an idea that you think will work, let's try it. And we would just go with it. And we took them from $300,000 to $36 million. So I was really excited about that.
Well, and that's good. So how long did it take you from the sales to get from sales rep to the director of operations? How many years?
about 5.5 years. It went from 1993 is when I started. And so I was, head honcho in 97, 98. And then it kind of just extended from there.
And you really just, you obviously didn't have any passion for phone service other than you wanted to save money on your phone bill. So you really just immersed yourself in this industry.
Yeah, what I call it kind of a common sense business thing. Some things I just get. And when I saw the movie Big, the movie with Tom Hanks, and he kept raising his hand and going, that doesn't make sense to me. Well, I was that kind of kid who would always go, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain that again so that I get it? I wasn't afraid to say that I don't get it, and I think that actually kind of helped me. But, I've had every obstacle that you could possibly have to overcome. From, here I was a woman. I was, 25, 26 at the time. So here I was really, really young. Everybody at the telephone company, by the way, was older than me except for the receptionist. Every single person. So the only friend I had at the company was the receptionist. I was African American, still am, but there was only one other person at the company that was African American. So, everybody, and I'm a little chubby too, so that's my fourth obstacle that I always talk about, that here I am, this young woman, African American, and chubby girl coming in to say, okay, you know what, let me try to figure out how this works. And I don't think it was about anything except for my boss finally watched me come in early, stay late, and tell him when things didn't sound right. I wasn't afraid to say, why are we doing it that way? Mm-hmm. And when he got ready to explain it to me, he'd say, well, you're right, Richelle, that doesn't make sense. So let's talk about what would make it better. And I said, well, one of the first things was, when they went to customer service, the customer, we would just kind of hand them off, and we wouldn't know if they ever paid their first bill, if their service was on or anything. And I said, well, that's kind of crazy. How do we figure that out? And he goes, well, we just hope to see usage on their telephone number. I said, well, now, that doesn't make sense. Well, how about if we call the customer and have them check their line to make sure that they're switched over to our service? It makes sure that we get the revenue that we deserve, as well as it gives us another opportunity to interact with the customer. Mm-hmm. He goes, I love that. Let's do it. So I got to always, when I would ask a question, he would be happy and even happier when more money was coming in over and over.
And how much do you think that sort of outgoing, confident attitude played in your success as an entrepreneur?
Well, confident. As far as I'm being really confident, I still have those moments where even this morning I said, geez, here I am. I'm going to be on a radio show. Oh my gosh. Am I ready? So I am outgoing. I'm not going to say that I'm not. But my parents also, when I was younger, sent me to every dance class there was. I danced for 10 years. I was a cheerleader, so I was constantly out in front of people. But every morning I have to look at myself in the mirror and go, ooh. And if we were on video, you could see that I'm really not that cute this morning. My hair's, in a ponytail and it's kind of falling out the sides. And
what you're describing though is, I realize there's all those aesthetic things, but what I'm really thinking about is your proactive nature is really what I mean. Because what you did, it sounds like when you went into that company was, you saw, you obviously had a boss who gave you some autonomy, but you took that and turned it into something different, because ultimately what I want our listeners to understand is that this kind of training, this kind of proactivity led you to actually be able to have the gumption to pony up the cash to buy this company. So, and we're going to talk about that journey too. In fact, let's get to that now. You're the director of operations. Yeah. And then, tell everybody, what happened when you, the company was going through some situations and you saw an opportunity to buy it. And tell people what happened when you went to an angel investor. And what happened to try and get the money that you needed? I think you needed, $72,000. Tell us what happened along that journey, and it landed nowhere, and here you are. We need to hear that.
Yeah, well, I knew that I had been running the company now for several years by this point. And also, you know, I think a key part of that story, too, is that my boss wanted to go public. And he came to me one day, and because he knew that this was going to be a touchy issue, and he said, Richelle, I want to take the company public. However, the world is not ready for an African-American female president.
Okay, now what year was this? What year was this?
This was 99. 98, 99, somewhere in there, you know, and now that, you know, Barack Obama is there, I wish I could have said, but look, we're going to have an African-American president of the whole United States. What are you talking about? And he said, it's not that I don't believe that you can run the company, because obviously you've been doing it for quite some time. It's the challenges with raising money and getting people to invest, and that's how, you know, you really expand your business by going public. It's not about you running it efficiently. It's about people believing in you. And he goes, as much as I do, I don't know if we can, because your background, I don't have an MBA, I have a history degree, and I had only been in telecom for about 5 years at that point. So he went out. Go ahead.
You haven't proved yourself.
Right. You know, I'd only proven myself to him.
And you were a woman and you were black.
Absolutely. So just forget about it. And still chubby, you know. So he decided that he was going.
What happened to her? But go ahead.
You see, well, I'm a little chubbier than Oprah, but he decided to hire a Caucasian male to come in, a family man. You know, he had 3 kids. He'd been working in telecom for almost 20 years, to come in and run the company. Well, my 52 employees hated him and would only report to me. And then my boss ended up hated him too, so that he would call me and tell me what to tell the president to do. So, you know, of course, that didn't last very long. As soon as all of a sudden he saw that he had to report to me and do the things that I was asking him to do. So one day he just quit. But that was the best day of my life, because I went from $75,000 to $165,000 overnight. You know, because I said, oh, okay, well, guess what? Now we know how much a president makes, right? So you need to pay me that if you'd like for me to stay. So then my boss was he was tired. He was like done with the long distance realm, because that's what we were really focusing on. And he wanted to move on into the international markets. Lots of people were making tons of money sending traffic to India and to Mexico. He really wanted to focus that part of the business and get rid of having, 15,000 customers. He wanted to go back to having maybe 10 that he could manage. And he tried to sell the company several times. And people weren't, it was, telecom rates were declining, and he wasn't getting the offers that he wanted, so he came to me. And well, one day I actually raised my hand while we were sitting in a meeting. I said, well, what do you think about selling the company to me? And he looked at me, and he's like, what? Okay, well, maybe. Well, yeah, you know what? You are a woman, and you are African American, so we won't have any problem getting the funding. This will be perfect. I went to SBA. SBA kind of laughed in my face and said that they would give me $10,000 to $25,000, and I needed $3 million at the time. There was no way they were going to give it to me. Then they actually sent me. They said if I purchased a building, they would consider it. So I found a building to buy. I put an offer on the building. I submitted all the forms. Everything was great, and then I got a letter in the middle of the night. I mean, it was really. Not a phone call, no nothing, just a letter that said, we've denied you. And it's because we don't like the business that you're buying. We don't think that there is really a viable telecom market. And by that time I had, built the company over time. We'd done almost $100 million in sales, and they said, well, I'll never be able to compete with AT&T. So I said, wow, okay, well, what am I going to do now? So I went looking for angel investors, because that was all the rage with the .com stuff. And this is, 99, really close to 2000. So I figured, well, yeah, I could find one. And I found one who said that they were going to give me $5 million, and they wanted me to buy other companies as well as the one that I was in. Fantastic. Plus give me working capital. All I needed to do was send them an engagement fee of $72,000. And so I said, well, how in the world am I going to do that? So I sold some stocks that I had. I took a line of credit that I had, and I took every single penny, and I wired them the $72,000, and never heard from them again.
They just took your money and ran.
Yes. Yeah. They came as a referral from someone else, another guy in the telecom industry. I mean, they couldn't do what they said they were going to do. And I was, are you kidding me? So now I have no money.
The way you describe it in your book is you're ready to go into business. You're ready to take this business over. You've done everything that you're supposed to do. You've wired $72,000 after basically cleaning out everything you owned.
Yes.
Okay, and then so you wait. As your book describes it, it's like, I'm ready to go. I'm waiting. And
that's exactly what it was. I mean, every day they'd say it would be Tuesday, and Tuesday would be Friday, and then I call on Friday, and they say no matter what, it'd be Tuesday, and then no matter what, it'd be Friday, and the money just never came. So we had also negotiated a deal with one of the creditors that my boss had, and the creditor ended up suing me and suing me personally for not paying this outstanding balance, for not getting this money. I mean, it was just disastrous. And really, in the book, it details the story of unfortunately, now you know the ending of what happened, but it was really devastating. I mean, I just sat there and said, what an idiot I am. Maybe I'm not that smart. All this stuff, all this confidence, all this bravado, all this proactiveness that you keep saying is wonderful about me, right? And maybe it's not true. I mean, I felt like such a failure that how could I allow this to happen and take all of my money? And I still had to pay the credit line back. I still had to pay all these people back. And now I'm thinking I'm going to own it. I also told, my key employees that, well, guess what? In 2 weeks I'm going to be owning this business. And they all just thought I was just pathetic.
So what happened? I mean, you lost the $72,000, and eventually this all led to bankruptcy.
Yeah, well, several things happened before that. I went to my boss and I said, you know what, I still want this company, but let's figure out a deal. What works for you, what works for me. So I actually paid him out of receivables. So basically, I structured a deal so that I never had to come up with any cash, and we could just work out of the customer's payments as they came in, so that he got a portion and I got a small portion until I paid him the amount that he felt was sufficient to purchase the company. And so I never really talk about that amount because, people would be shocked, and I just don't, because it was definitely part of the whole negotiating process.
Yeah, and you were able to, I mean, the point here is so fascinating and such an inspiration, Richelle, is that you were broke. I mean, completely broke. You had employees that were looking for paychecks. You had $72,000. That's a lot. It's not like a couple grand. That's a lot of money. And you didn't give up. And we're going to come back and talk to Richelle about that tenacious attitude that she has and how listening to her on this radio show for the next 15 minutes is going to make it rub off on all of us. This is Indie Business Radio. I'm your host, Donna Maria. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning the new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. I can hardly wait to get through with that break because Richelle has so much to share in the final segment of our show. So, Richelle Shaw, the owner of Fresh Start Communications Company, you were out there, lost $72,000 to people that you trusted, and so then what happened? What did you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I figured out the way to rebuild the company and actually take it over from my boss. So now my boss is gone. I have not the people that I thought were going to be there with me, but essential employees that I needed, and things were great. We were doing about $100,000 a month. That's still $1 million. I'm happy. I'm young. I'm hot now. I'm still kind of chubby, but I think I'm cuter than ever, with a pocket full of cash that really gives you confidence. And the tragedies of 9/11 happened. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We hadn't sent out any bills this month. And, I don't know if your listeners really understand how this works, but my exposure in the telecom industry is about 60 days. So that before I even send you a bill, I owe what you've used for the last 60 days. So all of a sudden, no one was making payments because there was no mail for 3.5 weeks. My customers were small business customers, and we went immediately into a horrible economy and a recession. And before I knew it, I owed over $2.5 million. Mm-hmm. And so I could recover from the $72,000, but the $2.5 million, there was just no coming back. My carriers were threatening to disconnect my customers. There was just nothing I could do except for to file bankruptcy. The most embarrassing, humbling situation ever. I mean, that was worse than losing the $72,000 because now it's on my record. Everybody knows. The day they came to pick up my Lexus, it was just embarrassing. My rental properties, every piece, every asset that I had built was now gone, and I had to figure out what in the world was I going to do now.
Well, and that's my next question. What in the world did you do?
Well, I looked at going to get a job, and I read something that said it takes 1 month for every $10,000 that you made. So by the end, I was at almost $200,000. So I said, 20 months. It's going to take me 20 months to find a job at $200,000. Well, let me see if I can rebuild this company. So before I focused on long distance, and I said, well, I was really treated badly after my bankruptcy. People just treated me like I was the worst person in the world. And I felt like, wait a minute, hold on, I'm a good person. I just made a mistake.
What do you mean by they treated bad? Give me an example of that.
Well, anything that I wanted to buy, I had to buy with cash. I had to put a substantial deposit down. When I got the power turned on in my house, I had to put a $500 deposit down for my power bill because in the summer power bills are crazy. Our cell phones, I had to get on my mother's account because nobody would give me a cell phone account because of the bankruptcy. Either that or go totally prepaid, which at that time was just ridiculous. You paid, almost $2 a minute for a prepaid cell phone. And I just kept looking at all of these utilities that, the bank didn't want to give me a bank account. And it was just, wait a minute, these people are just credit challenged, including me, but they're not deadbeats. Some of them, don't get me wrong, are just horrible. They'll never figure it out. But there were people like me who watched Susie Orman every week, who had investments. I just rolled the dice, and unfortunately, something came out wrong this time. So I had to I said, what if I came up with a telephone company that targeted credit challenged customers, that made it so that they never, ever got their bills disconnected, ever got their phone service disconnected, and made it so that their bills were always the same thing every single month. And so I tried it. I said, well, let me just kind of check this out, because the first time I just, opened up a local service and not one customer paid within the time frame. Not one. And I said, well, what in the world? So we started to call them, and they said, well, you don't give us 2-month bills? Well, no. I need you to pay so that I could pay the carrier. Mm-hmm. So then that's when I came up with really strict rules and stringent stuff, but I had to figure out how to almost, show the customer once again that this is a solution to the problem, and I'm not just selling them this prepaid service.
Right. So you eventually just basically worked that plan over and over and over again, developed a system where you could pay your the company that you were buying the service from and get customers to pay you, so you could eventually grow it, start turning a profit, and eventually, it's on its own now.
Absolutely. And everything that I did the first time, I did the second time. Except for the first time I had lots of sales reps. This time I couldn't do it. So I had to pretty much put my salesmanship either in print or in the radio. And I became an aficionado of media buying as well as just knowing how to connect with my customer. The NAACP at one point wanted to put me out of business because my commercials they felt were offensive. But I needed to talk to my customers the way that they understand, not in a way that sounds like other telephone companies. So I created very unique marketing campaigns to specific targeted individuals that were both credit challenged and who had gotten their telephones disconnected before. And once I did that, the magic happened.
Because they realized you weren't talking down to them, you were trying to help them.
Absolutely, and respecting them and showing them that, look, this is the better way. And let me tell you what they don't tell you, So I created this relationship with them that not only once I got them in, but I rebuilt my $1 million company, though, back in about 5.5 months, which is, phenomenal. I don't, say what you want to say, but, normally I am really kind of humble. But it really was. It was a shock to me, and it was a shock to everybody that this would actually work. And the best part is that I found a target market that nobody wanted. Telephone companies were throwing them away. 330,000 people get their phones disconnected every single week from local telephone companies. But nobody, wants to touch these people. Now, after I started doing it, now you see that in several areas of the country there's Cricket, there's a Metro PC that are all based on the same philosophy that I did way back in 2001.
Right, but you saw it first.
I saw it first.
So key about what one of the things that your story teaches everyone is to be able to know your market well enough to know where an opportunity is.
Absolutely. And I see that especially now that I coach other individuals. They all come up with an idea, and I said, okay, well, have you tested this? Has anybody bought from you yet? Well, my friends and relatives, and I always tell them, go sell 2 people. Go sell 2 people that don't know and love you. And then once you do that, then come back and let's talk about, what are their characteristics? What are they doing? Have you ever, how you really take your business to the $1 million level is figuring out, who that target is and who really loves your stuff. It's not everybody. You can't reach everybody. You don't have enough money to reach everybody. So let's figure it out. Just like with you, your target is independent business owners that are doing their own home products with facials and soaps and things that they're creating themselves. You're a fabulous advocate for them. You go to Washington for them with your association. You help them build their other business. So now when you see somebody else who is not manufacturing things themselves, they're not the perfect customer for you. And it doesn't make sense. Yeah, they can learn from you, but that's not who you target. And I notice it all the time that most of the mistakes that small business owners make is that they're trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah, and I think some of that, if you agree, it sort of extends from a desire not to miss out on something.
Absolutely.
I want to throw everything up against the wall, and I know something's going to stick.
Right, and just hope that it works.
Yeah.
And hope is not a strategy.
No, that's a good...
Hope is not a strategy, and I sit there all the time and go, okay, look, I pray all the time too, and I am very committed to, to God and to my faith, but I also know that for the longest I was waiting on Him, and I kept saying, how could this happen to me? What is going on? And then I realized that He was waiting on me, that He's deposited everything that I need to build a business, to be successful, to be confident, no matter who I am, no matter if I am chubby. No, I kept waiting for, as soon as I'm thin, then things will be better. And, I've dropped several pounds, but it didn't change. Nothing changes until I decide to make a change.
And that decision is tell us, would you say that mindset, that proactive decision-making mindset is what separates people who are successful in business from people who just really never quite get to the point where they feel like they've achieved what they want to do.
Yeah, and being able to move on. I had someone ask me not too long ago, well, don't you think back to how much that house would have been worth? No. Are you kidding? No, I don't think about it. That was the best thing that ever happened to me because I had to really, the best thing that happened was now I saw that I know how to build a business now. The first time, everybody said it was my boss and it was a fluke and I didn't really know what I was doing. But now I know how to build a business. And every time I show you exactly, my 3 R's and then how to do it after that, the new client acquisition, and then from there, the what next and to constantly be working through it. Every time I lay down the template, it works. It works.
We're going to tell everybody where they can go to get your book and get your coaching and everything, but tell us really quickly what the 3 R's are.
Oh, well, the first one is retention, how to hold on to those customers. Because I could get them, but holding on to them was really tough, so I figured out how to keep them, how to stay in touch with them. The second one is reactivation. Once you disconnect them, they weren't lost forever. They already knew me, they already loved me, so why not bring them back? And the third one is really having a referral system. Referrals is, people say, oh, I ask for referrals. No. I want you to have a system. I want you to actually, do something when they do refer and make sure that you place things in their brain to tell them how to refer customers to you. It's really a science. It's not something that's random. Then after that, you just asked me for my 3 R's, so I'll be quiet and let you talk again.
No, that's okay. You got to go. After that, tell us more.
Then after that, then work on new client acquisition. It starts from within. You got to work on what's going on in your existing business before you should go out and find a new one. Because if you don't have those systems in place, then when you find a new one, you're not going to keep them, and you're just going to lose money over and over. So once you do your 3 R's, then you go out and you start the client acquisition. And so my favorite is, my number was 84. I needed 84 new customers every single month for me to make money. So everybody asked, okay, Richelle, how do you get 84 new customers a month? Well, I don't know one way to get 84, but I know 84 ways to get one. And every single month I do all 84 things. I did from, I still do partnerships with bail bondsmen because people who get their phones disconnected go to jail too. So, lawyers, bankruptcy lawyers, banks. I have a partnership with the bank here that they have actually a Fresh Start checking account. So that when they get the Fresh Start checking account, obviously they lost their checking account before, so they refer them to come to my telephone company. Car dealerships, same thing. People who are credit challenged feel very nervous about going to the car dealerships. Well, I researched the best ones in Las Vegas to go to, and actually I get paid for that. So now, not only do I get paid for their monthly service, but one of my upsell items is to sell them a car.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, what? How does that work? But it works every single time because they know and they trust me, and I give them credit tips every month because I tell them about my bankruptcy and how I rebuilt my credit after that. And it's really, once I do the relationship, then selling to them is not even selling. It's just offering another solution. Then the last thing is just constantly thinking about what next. What else can I offer them? What other service can I offer them? How can I make service better for them? And how can I keep them longer? And it really is, it works every single time. It's a lot of fun, too, because when you see the magic happen, it takes about 90 days. But after that, then it just goes steady and it just rolls and rolls and rolls. Just very fun.
Sounds like part of what you're saying is that it's all about the relationships that you build.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you think so, too? It's really about, I used to hide a lot, by the way, because after the first time, after my bankruptcy, that was just the final straw. Between the black and the woman and the chubby and the young, now I'm not so young, but I just would hide and I let my marketing really talk for me. But what I found was as soon as I came out and said who I was and created the relationship in my newsletter, featured me, showed pictures of my daughter, then my business really, really exploded. Mm-hmm. And that's when, now that I tell my story, then yeah, I've been featured in USA Today, in Black Enterprise and Entrepreneur magazine. But it was really when I decided to have that relationship and say, this is who I am, be very transparent. My customers just decided that, wow, we are more like her than we ever imagined, and we'd like to stay with the service.
You put yourself out there, and so it's not just telephone service that so many people are buying. It's you.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's
for any listener to get, no matter what business you have. That's such a great nugget, as well as the one you just said, which is I thought was great, which is it's not about selling; it's about offering a solution.
Very much so.
Breaks it down, just like Richelle. That's what you are. You're a break it down kind of girl.
Well, because you know what? I think it's because as much as I think I'm really smart, I'm really not. So I have to have it in little tiny nuggets so that it makes sense to me. So I go, oh, okay, aha, I get it. Let's move on. You know, no big words, no exaggerating, explanation points. I just need a little word. You know, when I listen to a lot of gurus that are out there now, I think a lot of them just kind of fall into using language that somebody else used before.
Yeah.
And so they talk about, the millionaire mindset, and I don't know what that means. Not that, okay, logically, but in my heart, I really don't know what that means. So I have to say, well, it's the thinking that means that you can, I have to really break it down into those nuggets. And that's what makes me, I think, different, because I don't get it like everybody else does.
Well, I think your wisdom and the accumulated knowledge that you have to show for yourself, it certainly is. You may not call it smart, whatever it is, it certainly is of great value, and I've certainly enjoyed having you on the show. I know my indie listeners have as well. Now tell us, Richelle, where is the best place to get on the Internet to find out more about you, to get your book, etc.?
Oh, well, you know what? You can always go to RichelleShaw.com.
Okay.
You spell my name RICHELLE, Shaw, SHAW.com.
Great.
You can go to my blog, which is Richelle Shaw Marketing, which is lots of fun, kind of me just giving my opinion, which sometimes is a little bit much, but it's direct. I said, my friend said I need to change the name to Straight No Chaser, because I just kind of give it to you straight, no chaser.
Good.
So you can go to either one of those websites. Both of them have my book for sale there. And, my wonderful VA, when she created the file for my book, didn't fix the margins, so it's not on Amazon yet. So it's still pending in the Amazon file, but it should be there.
You can go to either Richelle Shaw or RichelleShawMarketing.com and
Absolutely.
Get it. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing so honestly and so genius-like from your experiences. We really appreciate the nuggets that you've left us with today. And I'm certainly excited to have an opportunity to meet you. So I want to tell everybody to make sure you head over to RichelleShaw.com and get your hands on Richelle's book and learn about her and subscribe to her blog and get some more of this straight, no-chaser kind of advice that she offers. Next week, Mark Tewart, who is an author of a great business book that I know you're going to enjoy. And Mark Tewart is going to be on my show next week. I'm going to welcome him here, and I'm going to be looking forward to welcoming you back as well. In the meantime, this is Donna Maria signing off. Enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com. The following program is provided for informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed during the show do not necessarily reflect those of the station or the host. There are no guarantees to the information presented in this material, and the claims and results of any cannot be guaranteed. As always, you should consult with a professional before making any decisions that may impact your legal, financial, or medical well-being. This recording is copyrighted, all rights reserved. No portion may be used or reproduced in any way without express written permission.